Kia ora, everyone. This is Mr. Aotearoa coming all the way from New Zealand. It's a Saturday here. It's a long weekend for us on this side of the world with the Waitangi long weekend. Um, but we are coming live to all of you all of our viewers on this live digital kava session on YouTube, uh, X, Facebook, and was it Patreon, but we had trouble with Instagram,
Yeah,
so we're not on
Instagram's being
Instagram.
difficult today.
Yes, Instagram's being difficult today, but yeah, we're very excited for this live digital cover session on the Polynesian Eyes podcast to dive into more Talanoa, and happy to have you, Tualau, all the way from Las Vegas. How you doing this evening on your side of the world?
It's great. It is a crisp 57 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's great weather here in Las Vegas. Excited for the weekend. And it's been a little bit since we had a live. I think it's been like 2 weeks. Part
Been
of it
busy,
is
busy.
because, yes,
Yes.
part of it's we've been busy, but also we have a ton of episodes that we could miss many weeks and still have
Mm.
episodes to release. But we are, we recognize that it's important to consistently stay engaged. These
Yep.
live digital kava sessions, I think, are important part of us engaging with the viewers and the listeners. And even the haters miss us, man. Even the haters miss us. I feel like the haters feel a little lonely, right? It's like Donald Trump and the fake news. When Donald Trump's gone, they're like so sad. They
They're
have
so
nothing.
bored.
Yeah, they're
No,
so
nothing to do in their
bored,
lives.
don't know
Mm.
what to do. They feel lonely. So we're also here for that. And actually, in many ways, we appreciate the people who give us a lot of pushback because at the end of the day, we want our ideas to be challenged and
Yes.
it drives engagement. Believe it or not, it helps us, right? Because it allows the algorithms to recognize our videos, um, that there are people who are engaging in it. It drives conversation, and I think Masi, I think we finally looked at one of our Facebook pages on Devita
Yes, we
Fale's
did.
Facebook page. We actually looked at the numbers that came out just for 2025. If you want to share what you saw as the perspective on that, Mr. Atearoa, what we learned from just that one Facebook page.
Yes. So from what I can recall too, and you can jump in, is on just for that year, we did about what 2 point something million views to it. Is that correct?
2.4 million
2.5.
views.
Oh, 2.5. 2.4.
Yeah.
2.4 million views. So obviously that is a huge indicator of the amount of engagement and views that all of Polynesian people who are interested in Polynesian history are having a view at, and probably non-Polynesians too, because there have been some non-Polynesians who are interested on the history. So, and that's just on Facebook. So that was pretty awesome data, Tua, going with that with you, regarding the data just on Facebook. But the great news is I think the best is yet to come, and we still got
Yes.
lots of content, like what Tua mentioned earlier. We've got so much more content that we haven't released, and we still have more to come forth. The more that we learn about our history and the new data, because I think new data is also developing regarding our Polynesian history that we will be here to discuss it on the live digital cover session on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. But that's remarkable data. Dua, I don't know if you had anything to add on, maybe, or maybe your personal um, thoughts on that.
No, 100%. And Lou, this is why we have the live digital kava sessions. We weren't planning to discuss that, but obviously, what do you always say, Masi? Give the people what they
For what
want,
they want.
right?
Yeah.
So obviously, we will get to it, Lou. I wanted to just kind of pop that up real quick, and we'll come back to it. Um, Alisa, Malo, appreciate it.
Hello, Alisa.
Yes, I mean the engagement has has been off the charts, right?
Yeah.
Uh, on this Facebook channel, this one channel that we have, where we have our shorts, we
Hmm.
also have our long forum videos. We also have the podcast. We kept getting so close to 100,000 views uh, a month. Soon we'll break it, but when we add the two channels, we have this channel, and then we also have a channel that only has the shorts on it.
Mm,
That has about 50,000 views every 28 days. So with the 90 plus thousand views, that's 100,000 views every 28 days on YouTube. And as you mentioned, Facebook, we get millions of views
mm.
annually, and like that 2.4 million. That doesn't include our other um, Facebook pages. Obviously, Devita Fales Facebook page has been a intersection or
Hotspot.
a collection
Yeah.
of
Mm,
people. For I think we started Devita Fales Facebook page about 7, 8 years ago, so
yeah.
that has a lot of people in there having those discussions. So it's caught on fire. We also have the YouTube. I mean, sorry, TikTok. We also
Yes.
have Instagram. We really don't track Instagram. I
It's
go in
been
there
off
every
and
once
on.
in a
Yeah.
while. Yeah, but I mean, it's been crazy. It's been
Mm.
much bigger than I could have anticipated, to be honest.
And
So
it's
it's
always
really
it's
exciting.
always the yeah, no, I was gonna say too, it's always the ones you didn't have much expectations that the expectation has exceeded your own personal expectations where you didn't have much for it.
Yes, and the funny thing is we use a platform called StreamYard as kind of our primary platform that we publish a lot of our content and so forth on. And for a while I was only looking at TikTok and YouTube. Those were the
Mm.
only two I was looking at. And then one time we had to upload a video directly, rather than publish it on StreamYard and go to all the different social media outlets. I had to jump in to Facebook and upload it. And it was when I went in to upload the video onto Facebook maybe 4 or 5 months ago that I saw, you go into the control panel, and then I
Correct.
looked up and it said you had 600,000 views in the last 28 days. And I was like, holy
Maria.
smokes. So really from that point, I've really tried to um, get more engaged on Facebook. We didn't really respond to comments on Facebook, but now we've taken some effort to respond there. But I mean, it's been great. Masi, Alisa says, how much do you want me to donate? Oh, yeah, way.
Oh.
Alisa,
Alisa. Oh.
what are your
No,
thoughts,
I was
Masi?
no, I just say, hey, whatever you feel comfortable. There's no rule. Like it's almost like when we're performing at Taolunga or at Tulafare. We tell the people who are just coming to Fakapare or come put the money, they decide how much you wanna give. So it's kind of like that. That's what I would
Mm.
say to her. I don't know what you think.
I'm not trying to be mean, Alisa, but usually when I go to a fight kava, which is not all the time, but every so often, the first guy who says how much kava you want, how much money, that's usually the guy who gives the least. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I
That's
think you're right.
that's
I think you're
that's
right on
usually the
that one.
guy who come and fakapaheke and inutenga ikoa at the kava. But I could be wrong, Alisa. I mean, you can prove me wrong. But like Masi said, with the super chats, if you want to throw in a digital kava bag,
Yeah.
100% feel free to do so. We won't complain. And I would love to be wrong, Alisa. But I'm just being honest from my experience. But yeah, I want to come back to anything else, Masi, before we come back to Lou's comment here, because I know exactly where this comment from Lou is coming from.
Um. Wait. What's up, Slick Rick? Thank you for joining
Malo,
us.
Malo, Slick Rick.
Um. Regarding Lou's question, to is that
No,
we?
anything before we go to Lou's question.
Ooh. let me see. Nah,
Nah.
everything is good, man. Appreciate everybody. Just I'm excited to talk about, talk about the the topics that we have for today. So looking forward
Okay,
to it.
perfect. So I have a feeling that this is the video that Lou is talking about, and this is why it's awesome to have the live digital kava session. This wasn't
Mm.
right. We're not like what you call increased fleas and some of these people where we asked Lou to, hey Lou, can you please pretend to to be someone that's not us so that you can recommend a topic like we watch, what is it, Karen Ukamea? He's having a
Yeah.
conversation with himself, where it's like, hey, wait a minute, how come it seems like the same person? We promise we don't know who Lou is. And this is like the first time I've seen Lou comment. So,
Mm.
but this is why we have the live digital kava sessions, right?
Yes,
We
sir.
got to
Yes,
roll with
sir.
the punches. And this is, I think he's referring to a video by Dr. Ocustino Mahina. And it's also
Hmm.
interesting. I think you'll recognize. Have you seen this video before, Masi?
I think I've seen it parts of it. Yeah, because
Okay.
people would post it in
Okay.
our thing, and I would
I
see it.
want you to pay attention to who he's having this conversation with,
Okay.
and see if you remember this guy. But we'll show this video, have the and respond to it. But that's where Lou is asking this question. Is it true Samoans settled Vava'u?
Hmm.
So we'll listen to a lot of the Samoans like to say this renowned and well recognized historian.
Hmm.
Was first
Oh, let me start.
that Babao was first settled by Samoans, so it is something I'm proud to say.
Hey, our friend
That
there.
we come from Samoa.
Oh, yo, look at the Samoans. They're mighty. They're having like, you know,
That Babao
they're having like, what do they say? Tingles running up their leg when they
Yes.
heard Dr. Ocustino Mahina say like Vava'u was it's that he said they've known this. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, very interesting. If they did that, I think. Well, I think David Burley said he even said it from his findings of the first, right, the birth of Polynesia from Tongatapu, then goes to Ha'apai, then goes to Vava'u, and then to Murifunua in Upolu, the Samoa archipelago area. So you know, I'll be interested, and you can, Dua, you have let our viewers know, and I've let our viewers know multiple times. We've tried to get a hold of both of those gentlemen, actually. Our,
Wait, can you? I
um,
think that's a very important thing, Mashi. Can you
yes,
please repeat that? Repeat that one more time.
yes, we've tried to invite Agustino Mahina, and I think it's Albert Refiti that's also on that video on multiple occasions, so that we can have a further discussion to go in the details to try to understand our origin as Polynesian people. But that is still being a work in progress. I can let the viewers know of the live digital Gava session of the Polynesian podcast. We are still working uh, towards that to get them to come on, but it's totally up to them. But this is kind of the reason why we have David Burley, the Palangi guy. That's so funny, right? The Palangi guy comes on and able to share with us, and it was super easy. It was just literally a one contact to this David Burley come on, and he was able just to share what his findings are. But there's been multiple occasions I've tried to reach out to Mahina and Rafiti. That's both of them are on that video to come on, and it's been unsuccessful so far. So, but that's just kind of my thing there, Tua. Just going by David Burley. That's from the data of population settlement in those islands. So I'll be more interested to try to find out from Mahina, what's the I'm sure there's oral stories that he's probably referencing in Vava'u that came from Upolu or Manua, whatever he says there. But that's on a contradiction with David Burley on what he's found with scientific evidence. So that's just my thoughts there too. I don't know if you had anything else, but that's
Yes.
my two
Here,
cents
here,
there.
here, here are a couple of my thoughts. Is first off, just like we've invited them, we've invited anyone who's commented
Mm,
on our social media who seems passionate about their belief on their position and is throwing out quote unquote evidence and receipts. We've invited them as well, right? We've said,
yeah.
come. I mean, come. We're just gonna sit down, have a conversation.
Mm,
We've even said when we invite these people, you know what? It doesn't have to be a debate, right?
yeah.
Like when David Burley joined us, there are certain things that David Burley believes that we don't necessarily believe, but we weren't there to be like, well, I disagree with that, or I.
Correct.
It was we
Correct.
just wanted him to express what his data, what his experience, put it on the table. We might ask a few questions here and there to try and get more information out. But it's
Yeah.
not our intent when we have a guest on that it's going to be
Correct.
confrontational or argue back and forth. We can have that if they want
If
to, but
if
that's
they
not the
ask,
intent.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. If they ask a question, let's just say, because like what you said, they're a guest, and like what you said, the whole intention is trying to extract and let them share information. And then if they were to put a question to us, and then it's a little bit more of a open discussion. But I think we've done pretty well to when we had guests on to kind of just let them feel comfortable and just share and just have a talano unless they pose a question to us to give us our opinions, and we'll share it. So I think it's awesome what we've done so far, inviting our guests that's joined so far on the Polynesian Eyes podcast.
interesting. Yeah, so that's one part. We even say you don't even have to talk about history. Come with any
Mm,
topic that you want to share that you think is
correct.
interesting. We can talk about it. And even then, a lot of people online haven't taken us up on the offer. Even some people like the story of who, right? The
Oh,
story said, "Oh yeah, I'll meet them," and then last minute pulled out. Charles Powono also said, "Yeah, I'll come on." He also pulled out. So as they say, the pull-out game's pretty strong with some of these
oh,
guys. Out,
yeah.
but here's my thing. I want to know if anyone from Vava'u also believes this. This might be news to Vava'u as well. This is, Vava'u is a very proud group of islands, and as we learned from Princess Pilolevu, there was a time that Vava'u, during the time of colonization, Vava'u tried to be their own country, because that's literally what was happening all over Polynesia. Like,
Mm,
you know, I'm going to come back to that idea about Tonga. Where is the Tongan Empire? But I'll revisit that because that's something that we get. But,
yeah.
I would love to hear more of this from Augustino Mahina. The details matter. Would like to know
Yes.
how he comes up with that. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if certain families, right, say, oh, yeah, we were brought from Haamoa here.
Yes.
We had a
Yes.
special skill set. Where we agreed that happened. The Tuitonga was moving families all around the Polynesian Empire. If they had a skill set that was valuable, that could benefit, right? Like the Lemeki clan, some of them were taken to Fiji because they were great woodworkers and we could build the karias there.
Idea.
Some of them were sent to Ha'apai because apparently that was like one of the areas where repairs were done to
Mm,
Karia before they went a long distances. That guy Fehoko,
yeah.
what's his
Yeah.
name?
He's the
He's
current.
doing, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
The
doing
boat
that,
building right now.
the boat building and woodwork over there. Um, that is something that I think is really important. And then also Refiti, he in the video presentation that he had that we watched early.
Correct.
early in the early days of
And
the podcast.
it's one of our top videos, viewed
Yeah,
videos too. So yeah.
yeah. He says two things that I thought were interesting. One, the Tufunga were always known as foreigners in Hamua. He
Mm,
said there's strong oral history in Hamua. So where did they come from? You know, did they
mm,
come from Vavau or what? So did they settle Vavau or did the Tufunga come from Vavau? The other one
yeah.
is they found that there was a inserted genetic marker into Hamua, and this Rafiti guy said that it was his opinion that that was Tangaloa. That when the Tangaloa line got introduced into Ha'amoa, which I'm like, wait a minute.
Interesting.
I thought our brothers and sisters in Ha'amoa said that Tangaloa was the original settler
Mm,
there, and that Tangaloa originated from there. So this is why we have to have these conversations, because it's easy to say something. It's more interesting to get into the details and ask questions and share more information so people can make up their own mind. But
yep.
the other here's my last point.
Yep.
Here's my last point. Um, there's a better chance for Vava'u being settled by Samoans than the idea that Tongatapu was settled by Samoans. He's heading in the right direction,
That,
right?
you know what? That's probably the closest to the fact that some of our people
Yeah,
were thinking that Bolu was the center of power instead of Tongatapu. But Vava'u is right there between, so it's a
yeah.
little bit better.
You're
Eh?
heading in the right direction, right? I mean, you're heading in the right direction. And honestly, I'm maybe I'm overplaying our hand here, Mussy, but this is news to a lot of people from what I heard. But
Mhm.
maybe it's because the Polynesianized podcast has established that Tonga Tapu, in many ways, trying to say that you settled Tonga Tapu from Ha'amo as an indefensible position. And
Mm,
maybe this is a concession. You know, when you start losing the battle, you start withdrawing and withdrawing. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too prideful in thinking that we had a small part in that, but I don't know. That's just me
mm,
thinking out loud,
mm.
Mr. Ateroa.
Well, I think we might have had a part. If you get 2.4 million views on Facebook, I'm sure our information is getting to our Polynesian people. So we'll see. We'll see. And
All right. Hey, we always take time to recognize our paying members on the channel. Eddie, Joe Brack,
hello,
Malo
Eddie.
Opito. So he has that symbol next to his name. So we recognize our paying members and we always appreciate them. Malo Popo, I'll read it, Masi, and see if you have any comments to it. But Eddie says, Fehoko, that carver and
Boat
boat builder
builder.
that you mentioned, said his ancestors were the Lemaki clan. They only were allowed to work and inspect the karias. So kind of like
Okay.
what we mentioned earlier, right?
Yes. Yes. And I'll also put um kind of put the story out there that the Lemeki clan, I believe they were like in Ha'amoa for a while, came back to Ha'apai, and then went to Fiji, then brought back to Ha'apai. So these were a moving uh, a moving clan because they were expert tufunga, you could say, in boat building. So, I mean, I believe what Eddie's sharing is accurate because that's kind of what I've heard, and it has to be the Fehoko because him, Tuyone Pulotu, is another master boat builder. He's also from Ha'apai. Isn't that a coincidence?
Mm.
Um, both of them, I'm not surprised that they're Tongan. They're boat builders. They're still alive, and they're the ones who were actually building boats way before when a lot of the Polynesian people were losing that knowledge of building boats. And not only that, the Tongans were the last ones, right? With the Polynesian Empire shrinking, the Tongans were the last ones to sail around Polynesia, the latest than any other Polynesian group. So, I mean, there's a reason why this skill has survived, and it's actually still practicing now. I think Tuyone Pulotu is towards the end. He's getting towards his later stage. I think Feoko is kind of more on the older side. So hopefully there's some generation after these gentlemen. They're the pioneers on the 21st century of boat building. Garias are traditional boats, and hopefully there's some generation coming after them. I don't know who they are, but hopefully there's some apprentices that are learning from them. But great question, Eddie. Malo Tua, did
Malo,
you have any
Malo Eddie.
thoughts?
No, I mean that's kind of like what we shared. Like these people were moving around, nobles, chiefs,
Mm,
tufunga, right? People with special skills as they were
yep.
needed were moved all around the Polynesian Empire. Going out to Tokelau. There's a lot of the Tuiatafu out there
Mm,
from Ha'atafu. Like that was a guy or a lineage that apparently had a lot of navigational knowledge that the people from Tokelau recognize. He was kind of the guy in charge there. Kind of like going along with this additional comment from Eddie. The Manuan chiefs were gifted islands in Vava'u. These people were moving back and forth. We were one nation, one people united under the Tuitonga. So it would make sense that they would be moving around throughout the island. So I'm 100%
mm,
aligned there. But
mm.
Masi, how about this one? You want to read this one?
This is from SK Red 6792. We know you're in the same house in different rooms and sent ICE your info and they said they're coming. Dua, are you looking be are you keeping your head on a swivel like they always say in football? Keep your head on a swivel if somebody's coming after you. Is ICE coming after you?
Shit. You know, SK Red 6792. I know we cover a lot about our ancestors on in Tonga and so forth. It's very rich. It's a very storied and deep roots on
Mm.
Tonga Tapu. We also have a lot of blood in Vava'u as well, believe it or not,
Yes, we do.
from Ha'alaufuri. So that's
Halau
why I'm
Furi.
saying I
Yeah.
never met anyone from my family in Ha'alaufuri who said, Tua, you're
Mm,
Samoan. Which we're like, no, we are Samoan, but it's more from
mm.
our ancient ancestors who were always married to Samoa, and also
Yes.
my grandmother's side from Holonga. Her grandfather was full Samoan, so we have Samoan blood, but just not from the Vava'u side. It's more from the Mu'a and the Holonga Tongatapu side.
Yeah.
Um, but on the other hand, Mr. Atearoa, I believe one of our first ancestors that came to America was either on the Mayflower or 4 years after the Mayflower. So, for all intents and purposes, we also have ancestors that have been in America from the very beginning, before America was America. So, you know, ICE would come to my house and say, Sir, we're here serving you in your neighborhood. We appreciate you for voting for Donald Trump and for supporting ICE. We're going to make sure we're going to make your neighborhood great again. That's all I
Yes,
have to say
sir.
about that, Mr. Atearoa.
Oh no, I know. Hey, SK Red, thank you for joining. We have no issues with ICE doing their job. If you're here, if they're there to do a job, if you were there illegally, they have uh goal of obeying the orders from the command in the White House. And if you're here illegally, then if they find you, good luck to you, and try another time. But that's just my thoughts there. It is what it is, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Eddie, once again, thank you for being a paying member on the channel. He said it would be great to have Fehoko. I think that would be a great,
Ooh,
great opportunity. So if the opportunity presents itself, we'll definitely take it.
yeah.
Malo Nicolasi also want to recognize another. I think
Ooh, Melvin.
Mel. I know that you're a paid member. We always recognize you, always appreciate
Yeah.
you. But Mel
Malo Mel.
may have been our very first. It's between Mel and
Lociare. Lociare
Lociare.
guy.
In one of
Io.
those two, I can't remember who it was, but you at least top two for sure. Mel has been a top two, but she says Malo Tua and Mr. Aotearoa. Mel, thank you very much
Malo
from
Mel, thank you for
our
joining
sister
us.
from Tokelau, Malo Abito. Interesting. Anyways, if there's any other interesting topic that comes out from the chat, we'll do so. We There's a lot of activity on YouTube, but there's also a little bit on Facebook. So we'll come to it as we need. If there's something that you absolutely have to have us take a look at, please use the super chat. But if not, we'll just kind of look through the chats as we go and see what comes up. Um, let's see here. Let's go to Winston Peters. Let's go to our buddy
Okay.
Winston
Okay.
Peters next here. And kind of talk to him. Masi, want to give some context? You mentioned Waitangi over
Yes.
there. It's
Yes.
it's a holiday. Is it a national
Yes.
holiday?
National holiday here in New Zealand. It's more of uh, a remembrance of the treaty that was signed between the new settlers of Aotearoa and the native people of New Zealand, which is the Maori. So that's what is Waitangi, and that's why it's a national holiday. Um, During this time, the actual Waitangi Day, government officials travel up to a specific area where this treaty was signed, and they do like just say they have a discussion and have they have a ceremony just to remember that day. So that's why it was kind of Winston Peters is on that video there, and they have a discussion. All the government officials have a time to speak with the Maori um, representatives that are there at this Waitangi area.
And I've noticed, Masi, just from the time we've kind of talked about this topic, I think we watched a documentary one time on one of our episodes on the treaty. As of late, it's been a very excuse me,
Bless you.
it's been a topic of high debate
Yeah,
lately, right? And what's the driver behind it? It seems there's a lot of confusion on what the treaty was saying. It sounds like the Maori are taking one position on what the treaty was, and the Pakeha people are saying it's different. Kind of give some context on that confusion and kind of the tension that's going
yeah,
on that, Mr. Ateroa.
yeah, and we've kind of talked about in our previous or past episodes, Tua, on one of the live digital kava sessions. Um, the thing is, the Waitangi Treaty has two versions of it: one English and one Maori, and most of the Maori tribes or chiefs of the tribes signed the Maori version, and then the English version is not as many, but the translations are kind of different from what they're saying, right? The
Mm,
English version says they surrendered their sovereignty to the British crown, which was Queen Victoria at the time. But then, see, and this is the confusing thing. And then in Maori, the current, and this is the thing, right? The current interpretations from the Maori side is saying that the Maori people were still going to be governors or govern, or they're going to still govern their own land, but they'll be British subjects, kind of thing. But they still maintain sovereignty
mm.
on
So
their land.
they were looking at it as more as a protectorate status rather than being annexed or being ceded to the British Empire.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's kind of the whole debate, right, about it. And then there's some government officials, because this is a coalition. One of the coalition partners of this government is an ACT from the ACT Party. That's what they're called. That's the name of the party. It's headed by David or is it Seymour. Yeah, no, Seymour. David Seymour. He wants national vote if people should still recognize the treaty or not, or discuss the principles, and that's kind of also added fuel to the flame.
Attention. Yeah.
Yes, adding
Can
a
you,
lot of
before
attention.
we watch the video, because I think it's important that you give that context on the Waitangi, and it's very important. You guys have a national holiday for it, and we're gonna watch this video. Can you kind of share? Because Mr. Peters is Maori, yeah, he's
Yeah,
Maori, but
he's
there
Maori.
seems to be tension between certain Maoris and their position on what the future looks like versus like a new generation, at least from Winston Peters. He's saying there's this new generation of Maoris and they seem to be opposed to each other.
Yeah. Well, this new generation of Maori are what Peters is saying, that they're not recognized, they're not understanding history with the of how New Zealand came to be, and the partnership of Maori and the new settlers to make it one nation, right? One nation of New Zealand today. And Peters is saying that was the whole understanding, that there was gonna be one people. This new generation of Maori people are saying that the treaty gives them entitlements to their land, and that they should be treated
Separate or different.
differently and separately than the rest of New Zealand. And what Peters is saying, he's a Maori of the and understanding the history about it, about this whole treaty was being presented so they can be one people, one nation. That's what he's trying to say. But then this new generation are saying it's supposed to be different, and this new generation also wants to reclaim some of their lands that were lost during the whole wars, all of that kind of stuff. So and that's why he's always having a reference to the new generation, because they're not understanding history. So
Yeah. And
that's
I think,
that's what it's about.
yeah, and I think this is important and this ties in quite well with these overarching themes of the podcast and of history because we might get to some of those comments. We're going to go through some social media comments
Uh,
at the tail end of the show. But there are some people who say, why waste our time talk about the history? You know, who cares right now? Let's just move forward, you know?
yeah,
And I
that cracked
think,
me up.
yeah, it's funny, right? And I think this is a prime example of why it's important to understand the history. Because if you don't understand the history, you're going to behave very differently than if you do understand the history. What's on your
No,
mind, Mr. Atero?
no, I was gonna say the people who say that that's the new generation Winston Peters is talking about. That's the ones who don't know
Uh,
history, and then they find out their niece and nephews or their kids is going and activists and shouting and all of this stuff because they don't know their place and they don't know their history. That's why it's those people. Maybe that's the people Winston is talking about. This
yes,
new generation.
absolutely. Okay. Malo Masi for giving that context. So that's kind of the whole context on Waitangi, Winston Peters, and what's going to happen in this video. So let's come back to the video here real quick. So this is Winston Peters' turn to speak at the Waitangi ceremony.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. This has been one extraordinary day. I'm hearing some things I've never thought would ever happen because when those people were in the trees all those years ago, I was over here. And they were shouting the treaty's a fraud, right? Until Sir James NRA said, hang on.
I think that's important.
Mm.
He's saying the same people who are now fighting for the rights in the treaty. And this is what's funny about Winston Peters. If you aren't paying attention, you won't realize he's putting you down and what he's saying. He's saying, hey, the same people who are yelling over here, they were the ones that used to be in the trees.
Mm.
And now they're in here. And now all of a sudden, not only are they in there now, he's kind of telling them, hey, I've been here for a long time.
I've been here for a
before you
minute.
were there. Yeah.
I was here when you were still wearing diapers. That's what he's trying to say.
Yes.
You know.
And then not only were you over there, but when you were over there, you were saying, forget the treaty. The treaty is useless. It's a
Mm,
fraud. And then now these are the same people who are saying, oh, the treaty gives me all the power and rights to be a treated as a special class of people,
mm,
maybe. I don't know. That's what I'm kind
mm.
of seeing so far there. Any thoughts before we go back?
No, no, we can continue.
That's not the narrative you need. You see what I mean? Walk in here and tell me something else, like we got no memory. 7 decades we've been here to respect and honor the Treaty of Waitangi. And what you've heard of late is both new and true. Unfortunately, that which is true is not new, and that which is new from these other people is simply not true. Whoever said we're getting rid of the Treaty of Waitangi? Tell me. No, we didn't. You tell me whoever said we're getting rid of the Treaty of Waitangi. So stop the crap. Stop the nonsense. Stop the hysteria. Some of us were out there before you were born fighting for Maori land rights. Do you remember 1975? No, you don't. Do you remember the party that they had a land march against? It was the New Zealand Labour Party. Do you remember who started the committees to take on the protection and defeat the Crown and the Whangarei County Council? Do you remember anything from yesterday? Well, some of us do. And we ain't here to apologise. We stand.
This, it's funny to me how different things in different nations at different times yet so similar. This sounds
Mm,
just like the Democrats and the Republicans and slavery and racism, where it was the right who fought for slavery to be abolished in the Civil War. It was the right who wanted the, segregation to be gotten rid of. But then
mm,
nowadays, they're trying to say the right are the ones full of the racists. It's kind of like the same thing that's happening
yep.
here with
Mm,
Winston Peters. He's like, dude, we're the ones who's been fighting, and it's the Labor Party we were fighting back then to maintain our rights.
yep.
And now, how somehow, after all of that effort, all that time, they have it backwards. Where
Mm.
now all of a sudden the
They're the look.
Maoris,
They're looked
they're
as
the
the
bad
racist.
guys now.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Funny, funny.
Interesting.
And for a country, as Pina Cooper said, we signed the treaty to become one people.
Yeah.
When she was marching, where were you? When she was fighting and the legal costs were being put together, where were you? Well, some of us have had a record that we're proud of, and we're not going to be misdescribed. We're not going to be falsified. You asked me where we're going to be in 2020, 2040. I hope because we have focused on the fundamentals that people need. Safe, affordable housing. A health system we can all access, hopefully not us, but our parents or our children. The third thing, we want the escalators of education to be open to everybody in this country and every Maori as well. But you can't have escalators of education when you got 55% truancy in our country. Let's stop the nonsense.
55% what?
Truancy.
What is that?
Truancy. I wonder if he's meaning like truancy in the schools, or like people not attending, the Maori people not attending school, or it's either that or
It's
probably the
basically
prison.
failing in education, is what you're kind of saying.
Probably that, or it could be the truancy, maybe, or getting locked up. I don't know,
Hmm.
because I know there's a high Maori population in the prison.
Okay. Let's let me ask Grok real quick. But anything to add there, Masi, before while I look this up?
Um. See, well, the the Maori. I know the Maori people need to understand that. I know, it's good to the Treaty of Waitangi, because it's so significant, right? Um, to their history. It's also being mindful on the current issues facing them now. Like, to me, the number one facing issue on the Maori folks is our fellow Polynesian is the open door migration. They used to be number
Yeah,
two, right? They used to be number two under the just the Maori population. Under like in the whole census, they used to be number two under the Palangi. Palangi's been first with 70%, then it's the Maori. But now with the last 10 years, the Asian population has really grown significantly, and they are probably the number two. And the Maori influence or population has dropped to number three. So, you know, when you drop number three, you get a less of less pie, I would say, less slice of the pie in your
politicians are
influence.
gonna forget about you sooner.
Yeah, they're gonna focus more on the Palangi and the Asians. I mean, you
Yeah,
just you get a New Zealander that's been gone from New Zealand, let's just say within the 8 years, and they come to Auckland. No doubt they're gonna recognize a huge demographic shift. You're not gonna see many Polynesian faces where they used to be. Now they are seeing more Indians and Chinese or Filipinos. So, the demographics have really shifted. And Winston Peters is trying to say when he's talking about improving the health, education, that's all important to make a demographic like Maori to thrive so that they can have a better opportunity to start families or a better opportunity to live longer,
mm.
opportunity to be more successful, to stay in New Zealand because
And have more political influence and power.
yes, yeah, power because now you're dropping to number three and it's only going to be more important that the Maori folks combine that number because they have the Pacific Islander as a separate group combined together with the Pacific Islander so that we can be more united. But the more that they go off on just some of these activism, it's kind of I don't know if it's going to lead to a positive result because while their whole focus is going on that, and it's fine to focus on that, but when you give your whole attention, energy, and and um, and all your just everything to that one particular thing, you're leaving yourself open to be exposed to other areas being, you're going to be overpopulated by another demographic group like Asia. So um that's kind of where we're at, and I think that's kind of the messaging Winston Peters is trying to just share out there is like they're missing the big
The big
understanding
picture.
because big picture because Winston Peters, he's seen the difference and he's one of the few Maori politician that he wants to kind of close the visa schemes to some of these cheap, low skilled labor workforce because they're being used a lot to come over, and not only that, they were bringing in too many low skilled workers that it's our infrastructure cannot hold them, cannot properly care for those people.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
and
that's
and
my
you know,
thoughts there.
Eddie shared this comment real quick too. Appreciate Eddie being a paying member there. But that's what's happening in America. The African Americans are starting to notice because of the open borders.
Mm,
All of a sudden, the left, who were saying, "Oh, we care about the African Americans," now they're forgetting about the African Americans and catering to this new un
migrants,
unregulated migrants,
yeah,
giving them
yeah.
all the free stuff. And the African Americans are like, "Wait a second,
They're on the streets being homeless.
yes, 100%." Hey, Shogun, paying member, Malo Apito Shogun.
Hey,
And
Malo Shogun.
he says that's for a strategic reason, gents. Remember, the treaty was between Pakeha and Maori. So the terms they referred to as Maori will now be interpreted as they for immigrants when that happens. Okay. No, and
Mm,
that's the problem, Shogun, as Mr. Ateroa shared. This is the challenge of why when you have it in two different languages, two different interpretations, two different thoughts, two different ideas, it just leads for chaos.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I did
and
look up. Oh, go ahead, Masi.
no, no, and that's why Winston Peters is just saying the treaty was signed to be one nation, and then once
Yeah,
we can settle that being one nation, okay, the history, there's really up and downs, and not so many good experiences with the wars and the fighting with the new settlers and the Maori people. But when it's 2026 now and you're still worrying about the treaty and its interpretation, while this other side of the door with immigration happening, and then you wake up, you find out your neighbors used to be Tongan, Samoans, and other Maori, and then you wake up as Indians and Chinese and Filipinos,
Yeah.
right?
No,
You already lost the battle. You already lost the battle.
no, 100%. And it's just not a practical approach. I mean, the reality is New Zealand got colonized, a government was set up,
Mm,
and if you try to have different classes of people, you're just going to lead to civil war and problems. You can't move forward with that. I mean, that's kind of the challenge that Fiji had for a while, right?
yeah,
They
yeah,
had that, and then they brought in a lot of the indentured workers from India. They
yep,
tried to fight each other. Where they're like, "Oh, we can't have this, that." They had coup after coup after coup because of racial tension. The moment
yep,
they just accepted, we are all Fijians now,
yes,
regardless of our ethnic background, move forward. We're one nation, we're one people. Then there's
hmm,
been stability, right?
yep,
Like, and that's what I think a lot of these people who are opposing it and want separate classes, they don't care about unity. They don't care about the future. You know what they care about? Maximize my influence. And one of the ways to do it is to cause chaos and cause division. And it's effective in politics, especially if people don't know the history. Then that's what Peters is trying to share here. When you don't know the history, you fall victim to someone who can speak well, someone who's
yep,
popular. They can take
yep,
advantage of you because you don't know the history.
yep. And just to add another thought, it just made you appreciate. We're all Polynesian. Maori is a fellow Polynesian branch of the Polynesian nation. Just made you appreciate what Taufahau was able to do, create the Tongan constitution, make it in Tongan, and whoever the immigrants come to Tonga, everyone's on the same level battlefield, right? Because that's how it was, and it just made you appreciate. And this is why it's important to learn some history from our fellow Polynesian brothers and sisters. Is they did a pathway that they thought was benefit for them. Find out we only find out much later, but it just shows you some of the level of political acumen that Taufahau had to create the Constitution in Tongan, which is, for everyone to know, the Tongan Constitution, I think it's the second or third oldest in the world. So, you know, and it's been bringing us stability, and we don't have issue with non-Tongans. We feel threatened by non-Tongans in Tonga,
Yeah,
just to put it that way. So,
not 100%.
And the last thing we want is a salary and income that we can live on sufficient to keep our culture and our way of life going.
mm,
Those are the four things that we aspire to, and we'll go on fighting for them. And dare I say to you, in 1935, a party came to power, party called Power Labour came to power and started doing that. And on and it went to the National Party, and they stole the ideas and did that as well. And made us number one in the world. It wasn't hopeless, and it ain't hopeless now. But if you think separatism and division is going to take us to 2040, you're dreaming. And I'm telling you, let me tell you, sunshine, I used to go to the marae where they had a thing called tikanga and protocol and respect, and not you shouting. See what I mean? See? Get an education. Get some manners. You had plenty of time. You had all these people speaking here. You see what I mean? All those people had a chance to talk, but here he is. All right, okay. Well, that's not the way it's going to be in 2040. It's not the way it's going to be in 2040. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're off now. Pure Tato.
Now, I have a quick question.
What's up? What's up?
What do you think would have happened to them 300 years ago when they went to the Marae and they behaved that way? I think they
Ooh,
broke out into a battle right there. The whole point
yeah,
of having a Marae and protocol and structure is to prevent war, is to let people speak. You follow the structure
yeah.
because chaos leads to war. And back in the day, you behaved that way, you got smacked. Do you know? Um, I think it was William Mariner or someone where they described it was mostly the Ho'eki had the povai, they had the stick.
Yeah,
And you know what was the primary function of that stick when they walked around? Was to
hit
smack
somebody.
people who did not follow the protocol.
Yeah.
You know, like if they walked by and they didn't sit down, or if they
Mm,
weren't following the protocol, you got smashed. Like, and
mm-hmm.
yet here we are, these people who are saying we need to go back to the old ways. We need to go back to the Maori way of doing things. And then they have a Maori setting and that's how they behave. I think that shows their colors. They're not interested in going back to the old ways.
Yes, and they're not culturally competent. They keep saying, "Oh, they speak the language and all these things." And I was like, that kind of behavior is like, dude, that's a, like I said, you're not, you just speak it, but you don't know actually how to live it, which is a big difference.
Yeah.
And it reminds me too, like with 2006, there was that riot that happened in Tonga, and then when it
Hmm.
was getting really bad with the burning, and then the king sent out the military and actually enforce martial law and shoot anybody who didn't keep the curfew on it. And I think a couple people actually died, got shot. So hey, sometimes I hope the Maori who actually, the Waitangi, they have a committee or the Waitangi people that sit over there to represent the Maori. Hey man, get some security and enforce some some structure and some protocols because to me, I don't think uh 200 years ago Maoris were yelling like that when they were in front of just like a malae where people kind of gather to have a discussion that people people shouting from the sidelines uh against somebody that they don't agree with would be
Yeah.
still go home and have a cup of tea after after they
Yo,
did that
it's
shouting.
it's yeah, it's kind of funny because you know right now it's like super popular the Chihu stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
And it doesn't bother me, but
yeah.
I find it hilarious when Polynesians they get all offended when I've seen this happen. They're at
Mm,
like a graduation or something, and
mm,
they get go chee-hoo and they go crazy. And some of the palangis ask them, "Hey, can you keep it down?" Well, oh,
mm,
it's my culture. My ancestors have done this. You know, you're
mm.
just racist. And in the back of my head, when we grew up in Tonga, that's called whakaulu, right?
Mm,
That is very disrespectful. Like
mm.
you do not whakaulu in a town or anywhere. Like guys who wanted to cause trouble would walk down. You would walk down the streets,
You're looking
and
for
if you,
trouble when you do that.
yes, it's really what it was. It was a sign of disrespect because if you're walking, when we were growing up, if you walk down a village that you were not from,
Yeah.
and even if you were at risk, but it was 100% guaranteed. If you were not from there and you walked down through the village and you were chee-hooing that loud and making that, someone was going to come up and challenge you to a physical confrontation.
Yeah.
Like, because you walking down or making such noise was basically asking for a physical confrontation. And that's what I feel like the the behavior of those other Maoris at the Marae,
Mm.
they think they're being activists. They think they're being blah blah blah, right?
But that's a Palangi, right? They're acting more
Yes,
Palangi than
that's a liberal
Polynesian.
Palangi way
That's a
to,
white Palangi that has no culture or no
yeah.
no discipline.
And
but they're
so
more palangi.
that's what's ironic about it, right? And this is why history is important. Understanding history, understanding how we behave, because then you can distinguish. I truly hope, and I kind of felt this. I
Mm,
felt like people at the Waitangi, I think they saw the difference, and I hope it opened their eyes, right? To see that kind of behavior and to be at least to say, that doesn't seem right, right?
yeah.
And think about it and ponder the history and what the marae, what the protocols are, and why that's important. And that's why we're here on this podcast having these discussions. We think it's important to understand history, right?
Hmm.
I think we need to talk about those things. Any thoughts there, Masi, before we bring up the next one?
I think Winston Peters brought a good idea. He's focused on, all right, the past is the past. We recognize it. We want to have good paying jobs. He mentioned that salaries, right? Good outcomes because he said why? We need to be healthy and be sustainable so we can actually practice our culture. You can't
Yeah,
practice your culture, right? If you're speaking, if I'm a person speaking Maori and what's and I have this knowledge, but if you know you're gonna get more Chinese, you're gonna get more Indian, your value as a citizen in your own land is gonna be less valued because you're not as important. You used to be in the number two under the Palangis. Now you're gonna drop even further. So that's what Winston Peters is just trying to do. He's trying to limit the immigration, up your standard of living so that you can actually practice your culture. That's what he
yeah,
just said. And he's a Maori himself, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that we're losing that because we're saying things, oh, in the name of culture, without knowing our history, and our culture can be
Mm,
very dangerous
mm,
because you're going to be voting for these leaders to go in who say, oh, we're about the culture, we're about going back to the Maoris. Just from their behavior, I can 100% guarantee you, if they get into power, what they're going to install is not the Maori culture. It's not
mm,
going to be the protocol because, like what you said, Masi, they're exhibiting what they think are decolonized behaviors, which really decolonized is just the woke academic colonizer telling you a new way to behave because you know that what they were doing before is not what you want, and they're just
mm-hmm.
feeding you another dangerous idea rather
Yep.
than going back to your elders and your history and say, hey, what were we about, what was
Mm,
important to us, right?
mm-hmm.
Like family was important to us,
Face.
religion was
Yes.
important to us, and what's happening right now in the Polynesian faith community over there in New Zealand, much I think you were saying it's like diminishing
Yeah.
at like rapid pace.
Yeah. Most of the people who live in New Zealand now identify with no faith. That's like 66%, about 60%. It's staggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, to me, this is where this is where the Polynesian culture can save New Zealand, right? The Maori culture of faith, of family, of working together as a community, allowing each individual to contribute in the way that they contribute is very important. Before I forget, just for a knowledge note, Grok said that truancy in New Zealand, often referred to as wagging school, refers to
Yeah.
unjustified absences from school, including being frequently late, missing individual classes, or skipping entire days or weeks without valid reason. Okay, I don't care how much money you throw at this. I don't care what kind of thing. 55% of the
Of the
kids
Maori.
are not even going to school. That's a problem. That's a
Mm,
big, big problem. And,
mm,
you know, this is why I like Winston Peters' ideas. He says we need to get our income together, grow the income. We need housing to be affordable. Why? because that supports families, and
Hmm.
not just any kind of family, but a whole nuclear family with a mother, a father, extended family, and children. That's how you're going to rebuild New Zealand. Because I think we mentioned this on our last one, Masi. When we grew up in Tonga, New Zealand was like a high standard of living. Like
Yeah.
the New Zealand dollar was high. We were
Yeah.
like, man, New Zealand is a place to kind of go to. It's gone downhill. New Zealand right now is barely above San Francisco with how chaotic, or Minnesota, Minneapolis. Right now it's Minneapolis. The chaos that's going on over there. I guarantee you right now, Masi, just because of all the fraud that we're seeing in some of these far left cities, I guarantee you there's a lot of fraud going on in New Zealand with the big government and the resources that are being wasted in fraud while the
Mm.
Maori people are suffering because of that fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like what you said, the New Zealand dollar is almost just as equivalent of the paanga with the
Isn't that
amount of research
crazy?
they have. Yeah. Yeah. So
Man,
yeah,
no, and that's the
it's
thing.
unfortunate, man. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
And going on to our next topic here real quick, which is related, right? I remember like I kind of didn't believe this when I first kind of heard it, but people were like, that's so silly. Why are you guys bringing up that comment, that question? Remember, we had that one Maori sister. She did the TikTok video and she's like, what's the difference between a Maori and a Polynesian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Maoris would never say this, but Polynesians will always say this, this, and that. And I'm like, okay. So this guy, um, he travels a lot throughout Polynesia, and I think the last one I saw, he was in Tokelau for a while.
Oh wow. Okay.
But he made this comment, right? So he has a map of New Zealand. Then he has a map of Polynesia. He's showing, hey, look, New Zealand. It's an island in Polynesia.
Mm.
But as you notice in this map, Pacific Islanders on the map. Look at New Zealand. It's not highlighted like the other ones, right?
Yeah.
So this is his comment. He says, "Do you consider Aotearoa, New Zealand, a Pacific island? Oftentimes in my Pacific voyaging, I include Aotearoa in my extensive list of places I voyage in Oceania. But I include it in my list of Pacific islands in every conversation. I have a disclaimer or question depending on who I'm speaking with, who may agree or disagree. And believe me when I say I've actually had to have this conversation before. In my opinion and thoughts, though a larger landmass opposed to many of the islands in the Pacific that fit the traditional description of an island geographically, I always look at it from a central lens, being the Maori are deeply connected to the Pacific as Pacifica. You notice? I noticed this too. The Maoris always say the Pacifica,
Yeah.
right? And they talking about other islanders. And I'm like, dude, aren't you Pacifica as well? Anyways,
Mm.
as
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Island, my conversations being more cultural centric conversations than simple geography. Not that I've had any hard aggressive feedback on this topic. I know this topic is sometimes brought up and would like people's thoughts, right?
Mm.
So he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about, like, he goes, Judy, trust me, I've actually had conversations with people who disagreed with me on this topic.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you don't talk about the history,
Yep.
when you don't talk about these things and you don't understand. Next minute, just like the Maoris who say, we want the tradition back while yelling at the marae on Waitangi Memorial, is the
Mm.
same people here who are probably also saying, yeah, we're Maori and those are the Polynesians. When in reality, they're the same freaking thing, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand our history and our past.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
thoughts, Mr. Ateroa?
No, just like what Perez mentioned, it's the same experience that I've kind of, I didn't grow up in in New Zealand, but I've always known because culturally, ethnically, regionally, Aotearoa is part of the Polynesian nation. But it's just so funny when I've engaged with my fellow Polynesians and people just here in New Zealand, how they always differentiate um, that they're separate and they're like almost like different set of people. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. I was like, it's just been ingrained in their right. It's been ingrained in their education, and not only that, within their family homes. Because this is right, you missed opportunity to educate and teach history if your focus is always on the interpretation of the Maori or the the wars that happened in the 1800s and all of that kind of stuff, and you're still fighting it. And I'm not saying if there's something wrong, some justice issues going on, yes, go and sort it. But when you put your whole energy and stuff over there, dude, you miss out in a lot of education. Then you have a whole group of new generations coming and thinking that they're their own ethnic group, right? They're their own ethnic group. So, same kind of experience with the that Perez gentleman that shared that comment that
Yeah.
I've experienced here,
No,
and
and the
we've
thing
seen
is,
it. We've seen
yeah.
it with our comments to it, right? You now
Yes,
now that
we've
you've
seen it.
seen it,
We've seen it in our social media, especially if it's, where our videos that we had on Winston Peters before. They're like,
correct.
you guys can't talk about Maori topics. You Polynesians need to stick to your own. And I'm like, wait a
Pacific
minute.
Island ways or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. Uh, yeah, you have bigger problems
Mm,
than us
mm,
commenting on Maori politics.
yeah,
Um, and it's really important that we look to the past to study and learn, but we don't look to the past to get stuck
correct,
in the past,
correct.
right? Like that's what we do, and I think that's what you're saying, Mussy. We're not saying don't learn from the past, go read it, but some of these people are stuck in the past. They're acting like they were personally wronged. I was like, man, if it was the generation that was wronged, maybe the next generation, the longest is 2 generations. Once it's 3 generations away, it's time to just learn and move on. Like,
Correct.
you can't go back and change the past. And really, a- in order to move forward, you have to let go of certain things, just like Laufiri Tonga and the Tui Tonga. It came to a point where Laufiri Tonga understood it was time for Tonga to adapt and change, and the Tui Tonga was no longer in a position to facilitate that, but it also recognized that Tupou the First couldn't do it unless the Tui Tonga did a self-sacrifice, so to say. Like, someone has to be willing to make that sacrifice, to willingly lay down the past so that the future can grow. And unfortunately, some people, they're just stuck in the past and don't want to move forward.
Yeah,
And
and that,
it's
yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah. No, and just to add on, maybe I'll bring this explanation here or another analogy that's probably people can understand. When it's just a lot of people who had unresolved trauma, that
Yeah,
have brought all this back. But the thing is, people who have unresolved trauma, like, you're gonna be stuck, and then you're gonna be having all these issues that you are missing out on opportunities. You're having time stolen away. The thing is, you can't go back in time and change whatever happened in the past. All you're just gonna keep spiraling into a rabbit hole. But we're telling you what you can do is, right? Recognize what happened in the past and look out for certain behaviors that occurred to you and be better prepared going forward. That's the only way you can do going forward is learn from the past, which is if you had some traumatic experience that happened to you, learn those behaviors that was displayed that you can be more prepared to encounter and prevent, right? That's
yeah,
what you need to do. But you need to live life and take up opportunities that's going to come your way, because at the end of the day, if you keep yapping on certain things, you're having opportunities pass by you and you're losing time. And I think you ever heard rich people, they never talk about money, they always talk about time. Time is the most
Mm.
valuable thing. It's not the money that they make or anything, and it's time. So they say, well, once time passes away, that's more valuable than money, because you can always create more opportunities, but time passed by, you can't go back. All you can do is just learn and then be better prepared for the future. If that makes sense, Dua.
No, 100%, 100%. All right, I think we're ready to shift over to some social media comments.
Okay.
Let's look at a couple of these. Let me share this. This is what we'll finish off the show with. What I'm gonna do is, so there's this comment right here. Let's watch the video just to kind of give some context to it, and go from there.
In war. The single most written
Can you hear
about
that?
event in the pre-contact It's still loading. Oh, Samoa is the Tongan yep, War. I can hear it.
Okay, let me go back and start again.
Okay. The Tongan War. The single most written about event in the pre-contact relationship between Tonga and Samoa is the Tongan War. During this period, it is said that Tongan established some kind of control over Samoa. Most sources concur that this war took place in the 13th, 14th century. Samoan oral traditions record that Tongans launched an invasion of Samoa and successfully took control for a time until Tuitonga Talagay Faiki was forced out of Samoa by the brothers Tuna and Fata. Founders of the Marietoa line, Appendix Legend 33, the genealogies of both the Tuitonga and Marietoa lines agree almost exactly on the names and generations of the main characters involved in the Tongan War. This is fairly strong evidence that some kind of important conflict took place, indicative of the kind of regular and extensive contact that may have existed between these two archipelagos in the past.
Everyone, remember, some people were kind of poking back at us when we said it's just a little scuffle. It wasn't a war, full scale war. And once again, even in the oral history itself, Talakai Faiki never said, I'm leaving.
Yeah,
never
he's gonna come back.
He said, I'll come back, but when I come back, I'll be your friend. Which goes to show this wasn't a full scale war. This was an incident that happened, and further explains why Talakai Faiki was like, hey, good job, guys. Okay, so any thoughts? It's funny to kind of, because this video is from maybe a year ago or so.
Mhm.
I always find it interesting when we come back before we get to the comment that's in there. But we've learned a few things since then, right? Like we were just talking about the oral histories, and you, Mussy, were always like, I've heard this story, and it just never really sounded like a full scale war and all this other stuff. And I find it's funny that we've now learned that Talakai Faiki's mom was Samoan, and the village where it happened was the village his mom was from. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, so the idea that Tongans invaded Samoa and colonized Samoa doesn't sound like an invasion.
Sounds like a family get together that had a little scuffle during the event, and therefore gave the name Marietoa, which is one of the higher titles in Samoa. So that's what I kind of got out of that since learning more.
So that was interesting. So let's come back here to the comment itself. And I'm just going back from like the first comment. This is a relatively recent one. Let's pull it up here. So it says, oh, looks like it's a long one. It says, hi, first of all, just want to say thank you. And this is from Rena Topard, Venezuela. Oh, what? Valenzuela. It says, hi, first of all, I just want to thank you for your channel. It's fantastic. It's great to see high quality content about Polynesian history. I wanted to ask something. I understand warfare in Polynesia, and especially within the Tuitonga sphere, may have been different from large scale continental wars and perhaps less generalized. But in your opinion, was there any conquering king or warrior chief who clearly stands out militarily in the history of the Tuitonga Empire, particularly during its period of greatest expansion? Thanks in advance. Any
Ooh.
thoughts on that, Mr. Ateroa?
So he's asking what are some of like the head kind of captains of the military during the Tuitonga expansion? Is that correct?
Well, just kind of like anyone, whether it's a Tuitonga or a chief that we've kind of come across that may have been like very
Military,
militaristic.
militaristic.
Yes.
Yes. I if I had to choose, I'll probably say after the assassination of Takalawa to create the second highest title in Polynesia, which is the Tu'iha Takalawa. So Kau'ulufonua Fekai. I would say he's probably the most. He seems to me for that five
The
generations
strongest candidate. Yeah.
strongest candidate of a militaristic expansion because I think it was during his time where you see the Patonga that kind of went up. You also see the ruins in Uvea and Futuna, right? And then
Hmm.
you also hear stories of building some ruins in the Cook Islands. I think in that Puka Puka.
Puka Puka
Um,
Bangaya area. Yeah.
yes. So to me, that's probably the closest. I'm sure there's ones buried before that. I just don't know how extensive, but just the information that I've gathered, it seems like Kaufonua Fekai, that era and after him seems to be a very instead of the Tokatufa and having offspring that achy around, it seems like he really pushed the militaristic enforcement of the Polynesian Tuitonga Empire. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know if you had anything
Yeah.
on
No,
that
that would
comment.
be
Yeah.
my pick as well. And there's a couple reasons for those reasons that you shared, Masi. And
Mm,
obviously the name, right?
mm,
Fekai means
mm,
ferocious or savage, And so he has that name. And even the story behind how he chased the assassins and what he did to them, right? Chased
mm.
them all the way through, probably went through Hapai Vava'u, went to Samoa. It
Yep.
sounds like I think they might have gone to Rotuma before he catches up with them in Uvea. And
Mm.
while in Uvea, um, he tells the people in Uvea, it's like, you either give him up or everybody dies. We're going to have full scale war. Like, this
Mm,
is something that he was serious about. And so the Uveans actually deliver them back because they were Uvean guys. And I
mm.
interesting. This, I think we've said this in the past, but we'll re-share it. Masi, do you remember, if you could share, if you remember why the Uveans assassinated Takalaua or Kaulufonua Fekai's father, according to Xiaosi Ilayu when he spoke with the people from Uvea? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
My understanding was the assassination happened because it was supposed to be someone within their clan that was supposed to be married into the Tuitonga, but the Tagalawa didn't choose them and went somebody else. Is that the understanding? Because
It's
that's what you,
close. The
okay,
the Tuitong, remember there were three assassinations in a row, I think, two or
correct.
three. The Tuitonga that was assassinated before Takalaua became Tuitonga,
Mm,
he was actually, his mother was from Uvea.
mm,
And so when he was chosen to be the Tuitonga, obviously the Uveans were all proud because why?
yeah,
This Tuitonga is from our clan. And
correct.
this is something that I think is important for everyone to understand. I know our brothers and sisters in Ha'amoa, they're like, oh, they only married into Samoa because of the high blood. It's like,
Mm,
no, there were many wives, many Tongan wives, many Samoan wives, many wives throughout the Polynesian
Polynesia.
Empire, including Uvea. And we have oral history that says certain Tuitongas, their mother was from Uvea, but as usual, every Tuitonga came from a father who was from Tonga. But
Right.
anyways, that was the driver supposedly behind the Uvean warriors assassinating
Mm,
Takalaua, was because they blamed him for killing the previous or assassinating the previous Tuitonga who was of Uvean um,
ah.
line. And so that
Mm,
was their way of getting back at him.
mm,
And so, yeah, I would add that. And also, I would add another reason why Kaulufonua Fekai probably was the last Tuitonga to really possibly have a lot of that military power because, like you mentioned, Masi, the Tu'iha Takalaua was created specifically to have more political, administrative, and
mm-hmm.
political and military power. And so one would assume over time, with the division of those powers, over time, the Tu'itonga became more focused on the religious
Yeah.
influence later on. But that's kind of the position I would take there as well.
Nice.
Sweet. Um, here's another one that
Going to
just
read that one?
yeah. So let me pull it up. Let's watch the video real quick, just to kind of give some context. So this comment just came in 6 hours ago. Like I said, we're just going from the top, whatever's the newest um comment to bring up, just because it's convenient. I'm gonna share this one. Let me know when you see the new.
Yep, I see it.
All
Northern
right. Part Tokelau, south part Tonga, west is Fiji, and east Tahiti. And this is the interesting thing, Masi, that I'm starting to recognize. And this idea first came back from Mel's research.
Yep.
It she brings up a point here that I think at some point we need to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It seems like Tokelau was kind of like the capital for like the northern portion. And I want to say like state or district or whatever you call, because there's a lot of using of Tokelau as the center point for like the Solomon Islands, right?
To enter Vanuatu, I'm thinking like,
Vanuatu area,
uh,
even into a little bit to Tahiti. Tokelau seems to play a central role in there. It's almost like saying the island Tokelau is like the capital of that region, right?
okay, okay.
Fiji being the capital of the western region, going into Melanesia, deeper parts of Melanesia, and going west. And then Tahiti being the center of the eastern portion. You could almost make
Okay.
an
Okay.
argument that those, she says, no. Okay, so real quick, I'll kind of expand on what I was trying to express there a little bit better. Um, really what I was kind of getting to is Mel, who's one of our pay members. She had shared some of the research she had done, and it almost seems like certain regions had like a hub, right?
Mm,
And Tokelau seems to be kind of that eastern Melanesia, Micronesia, and a little bit into Tahiti, and Tokelau was kind of like where they kind of traveled back and forth like a route.
mm,
And that was kind of like the hub. Obviously, in Samoa, those group of islands, it seems like for a long time, it was Manua seemed to be like a hub, as you know, the oral history. And then you go to Eastern Polynesia, Tapu Tapu Atea seems to be
mm,
another big hub. Fiji was also kind of like a hub where there was the Lao group. And it kind of brought the idea that if you looked at the Polynesian Empire as a nation with kind of like states or regions, and within each region there was like a capital or a
mm,
hub where everybody came to. And it was interesting to me because around Momo, right,
Mm-hmm.
Tuitatui's father's time, he was the Tuitonga who said, guys, the empire is so big, right? And
Mm.
everybody's traveling from such a far distance that it really doesn't make logistical sense to have everybody come to Tonga every year from each like
Mm.
grouping of islands. He said, you know what? It's probably better that they localize the Polo Polo and the
The
Inasi
tribute.
tributes.
Mm.
And then maybe they just had the representatives from the hub islands come to Tonga, and that way it wasn't overbearing for the entire empire to come to Tonga Tapu twice a year. So when I think of kind of Mel's oral history in her studies and the role of Tokelau, we hear about Tapu Tapu Atea and the different regions, and then the oral history on Momo, you start to kind of get an idea that you could almost say they were provinces throughout the nation and they
Mm.
kind of had a hub in the capital. That's what I was kind of
Mm.
trying to express there. Any thoughts there before I bring up um the comment here?
No, I mean, to me that makes sense with traveling purposes that you had certain hubs that you would go to replenish or get more men for a further expansion to certain parts of the Polynesian Empire. So to me, it just makes logistical sense that you would have those hubs all over the Tuitonga Empire.
Okay. Awesome. Let me read this question out, Masi, or and then have you react to it if that's cool.
Okay.
So this is from Original Claymore. And Original Claymore is he always it gives us pushback, and stuff. I think he may be from Eastern Polynesia, because a lot of his comments in regards to Eastern Polynesia. But he says there's a lot of families in Vava'u that are descendants of Tahitians who settled there. Tonga and Tahiti would meet up on islands in the Cooks, Mangaia, and Rarotonga for political, trading, military purposes. The Cooks hold that oral history, and so do some elders of Tahitian descent in Vava'u. That is also a story I heard from my elders that at some point Tonga and Tahiti were in alliance. For how long, though, who knows? I've always heard Bora Bora was gifted to the Tuitonga as a place to celebrate Tongan traditions on that side of Polynesia. To me, I don't reckon one empire ruled over the other. Instead, once we all branched out and started our own chapters, alliances were made for the sake of our way of life. The same oral history that elders in Vava'u have, I have also heard very similar stories from my Cook Island and Tahitian elders. And that's saying something. I think that's why I've always been drawn to Vava'u. And he has a laughing emoji there. Probably have
Mhm.
very distant families there. So
Mm.
this Eastern Polynesian brother,
Yeah.
I think a brother, but could be a sister, kind of sharing some interesting oral history that's confirmed on both sides. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Read in this,
No, and yeah, I'm sure there's connections there in Vava'u, and I'm pretty sure Vava'u had another name before that or another reference. It was like the what's it, the Ha'afuhu or something. I'm not too sure the other name that's kind of referred to, but yeah, I mean, there's the thing is Eastern Polynesia. There's a bunch of references to Eastern Polynesia, even within Tongatapu. I mean, just where, um, in Hoi, next close to Mu'a, there's a lot of references to the Tahitian dances, the tamure, that's very popular in Tahiti. There's a name in all over um, Tongatapu regarding that. There's reference with the new Toa. Before it was called New Toa, reference to Eastern Polynesia. So it's not just Wavau, unique to Wavau, and I'm not surprised that there is connections there, but it's all over. It's all over Tongatapu too. So that's just my thing. We were very interconnected. Um, my thing critiquing to that was it was it was headed by, you can say, an empire, a nation, but there was a head there too. That was my only thing. There was a head, and then there was like subordinates, which is where Tahiti was a main location regarding the Tapu Tapu Atea, but there was alliances built there because those areas like the Maria Toa, which is a very powerful line because of their connections to the Tuitonga. Tahiti was the same thing. The most powerful chief in Tahiti was the one that can have the closest trace and lineage to the Tuitonga. Same thing in Fiji, Hawaii. So that's just my thing there. Um, it was the thing about the Polynesian Empire or the Polynesian nation. We functioned different than the other empires because we were very interconnected, familial wise. That would be
Mm.
my that would be my thing. Um, just to add my 2 cents on that comment. I don't know if you
Okay.
had anything else, Tua.
No, yeah, I do have some additional comments there. I mean, 100% agreed. I'm not surprised that the oral histories align from original Claymore, from Tahiti and Vava'u. Like I said, these families were moving
Mm,
all over the place, right? Remember when we spoke and we had David Burley on, and we talked about the Hawaiian petroglyphs, right?
yes.
And they can trace the style of the petroglyph to the, because I guess it progresses. The style has its original, then it changes over time, kind of like
Mm,
language and art.
mm,
And they can trace, like, oh, the petroglyphs in Vava'u and Ha'apai and in Tonga, which time period they stand. And they said it was around what? The 1300s, which
mm.
is the most agreed upon time frame amongst archaeologists. That was the Tuitonga at its peak,
Peak.
right? It was at its peak. So it makes sense. At that point, at the peak, the Tuitonga is marrying people up to Hawaii, Tahiti,
Correct.
all throughout Eastern Polynesia, going out to Uvea, Futuna, like throughout the entire Polynesian Empire. So a lot of the things that claim were there, I'm 100% on board. I would say, in response to his point on alliances versus an empire, I would say it's probably both, Mr.
Mm,
Ateroa. And my thinking is, in the very, very height of the Tuitonga, it was empire centralized in on or in Mua or on Tongatapu.
mm,
Then, as the Tuitonga declines, right,
mm,
you got to remember that the one of the things that I believe, and this is kind of like my gut feeling, and we've been pretty good on our gut feeling so far. Remember, we had the gut feeling about Tuna and Fata in the war, that maybe it
mm-hmm.
wasn't a full blown war, it's just a battle. Then the more information we found proved that that was probably accurate. We
Yeah.
had a gut feeling about the Tu'imanua that it didn't seem that old. Yeah, well, we kind of found that out a little bit too, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
data. We also had a gut feeling about when the Palangis called Samoa the Navigator's Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out, oh, when they did that name, they never
With the
really
tongue and
stopped.
boat.
And it
Yeah.
was probably Tongan boats. So my gut feeling is that as the Tuitonga Empire was declining and the military power is moving to the Tuihatakalaua, and the Tuitonga just kind of has more of a religious power,
Mm,
and that's declining, alliances seems
matter.
to matter more. Excuse me, I'm trying to sneeze a lot today.
Mm,
And so I can see kind of both in the decline, because that's somewhat very similar to what happened in Ha'amoa, right?
mm,
Is
mm,
it shifted a little bit more to maybe alliances and blood relations rather than the unification under the Tuitonga Empire. So I can
mm,
see kind of both things happening, just at different stages. It's just when you look back at how, and this kind of goes off of your other idea, Mr. Atearoa, that there seems to be regional knowledge and
Mm,
unfadable. There's a couple questions I'll bring up from unfadable here that I think are important, but we'll finish through this idea unfadable and we'll bring up some of your questions. There seems to be strong knowledge of regional navigation, like you mentioned, Mr. Atearoa,
mm,
but the global navigation throughout the empire does not seem to be as fluid as just a regional understanding of how to navigate. It seems like that knowledge and that capability was primarily with the Tuitonga and close allies of the Tuitonga, because it seems like the Tuitonga is the and his close allies are the ones who are doing the long distance. Now just imagine, and we talked about this a little bit with the Menehune, right? Kind of trying to understand
mm,
the Menehune story. Just imagine how much influence you would have if you were a young chief and you were to say, I am, the closest blood tie to the Tuitonga, and that's what makes me the rightful heir. And then
mm,
the Tuitonga shows up with 50, 100 giant canoes with thousands of people on it. They come in and then they build up a ruin or something. They
mm,
build this whole thing up. They bring resources, they bring people, like the labor, they bring food, they bring technology, and they come and they set up this new little settlement. And then they leave and they're like, oh yeah, this guy's legit. Like, look at what the
mm,
Tuitonga brought. Now imagine how much influence. You don't have to, as we learned from Donald Trump, you don't have to just use military power to get influence and control, right? Donald Trump is
mm,
just basically saying, you either do what I say or we're going to put 100% tariffs
mm,
on you. And oh, by the way, that means you don't get the resources or access to the American market, which basically feeds the world economy,
mm,
right? That threat alone, especially when you're living on these outer islands, a little less in like Hawaii. I did a little bit of study. Hawaii is probably the one of the unique major islands because the how big they are, that there's enough farmable land, that
mm,
high yield. But a lot of the other islands in Polynesia, Tonga Tapu was kind of like a phenomenon to be
mhm,
a coral island, almost 100% flat, which means almost all the island can be farmed with high intensity. The lagoon, the fish resources, the Tonga Tapu could generate a lot of food on its own for how small it was. Now imagine if you're a small island and you don't listen, and the Tuitonga says, hey man, we don't even have to give you military power. We're just not going to give you the resources that you could have,
mm,
right? We because like the Inasi, I think Maui Teke, like Daniel Fale said, the Inasi was more like a tax, but everybody would bring everything to Tongatapu, and then the Tui Hatakalaua and eventually the Tui Kanukupolu. Their job was rearrange the resources and give resources to
yeah,
different people,
mm,
right? Now imagine if for whatever reason you're cut out of that, right?
yeah.
Like you don't get access to the glass. I forgot the name of the rock from what's the volcanic island on in Tonga, in Ha'apai, that's
Hunga hunga tonga hunga hapai, that one?
no, the one that's a volcanic, the kava, they plant good strong kava there. I can't remember. It's skipping my head. There's two islands next to each other. Um, but they make the volcanic glass that was like sharper than any metal you can make. Then you
Wow.
also have the Samoan axes. Then
Yes.
you also have the Fiji and Kalia and making boats and stuff, the
mm,
Samoan mats, and all the different resources, and even new crops, right?
mm.
Like someone in the Polynesian Empire developed a new kumala that's
Yeah.
bigger and has a higher yield. That's the equivalent of not having access to the American economy, right? Where there's
Mm,
technology and capital and all those things. The Tuitonga, in many ways, could just threaten you, say, yeah, you're not going to have access to the Inasi and the
mm.
exchange of resources and knowledge or whatever. Or if there's a famine and you guys come and tell us, hey, man, we've been under a famine for a couple months, we need food and resources to be sent over. I know that's kind of more of a modern idea, but I think it's very possible
Yeah.
back
That
then.
that that makes sense to me, Tuan. And I'm just thinking, like, because when you mention about the whole navigating the ocean, everyone else seems to navigate within their geographic area, and it seems like the Tuitonga is the only one that can go anywhere outside of the Polynesian, let's just say, influence to Asia, South America, anywhere in the world. But I wonder. So to me, it's making me think in the line of thinking that the Tuitonga purposely gated that knowledge. That's what it seems like. Like
Yeah, it's a
whoever the
powerful
title,
piece of
yeah.
information.
So whoever was the Maui of the time was probably the most powerful person outside of the Tuitonga. Like with the access and mobility all over Polynesia. So it seems like it was a purposeful intention of the Tuitonga to gate this knowledge that was its that was its let's just say power in a sense to control the Polynesian nation. That's just what I'm
No,
just thinking.
absolutely. And I mean, this is where ruins matter, right?
Mm,
The Ha'amonga, this is why I think it's funny that people think it was just a giant door
mm,
to
mm,
Tuitatui and Momo's residence, right?
mm,
When it was a sundial, right? A sun gate. And yes, it tracked the movement of the sun and the seasons. But as Te Vita Fale has shown, right?
mm,
It is a constellation in the heavens that was critical for navigating northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, right?
mm,
And when you look at it, that's how the Furitaunga was set up. The Furitaunga was a representation of the heavens, of the stars, of the constellations. That to me is one of the big evidences to show what you're saying, Masi, because unless someone shows us that same thing
mm,
somewhere else in Polynesia, I tend to believe that Tatu Itonga maintained that power of knowledge
mm,
of the navigation. And that's what gave him that influence and that capability to
mm,
do and maintain the empire was because of that, you know?
mm,
And it's funny. I mean, this is kind of silly, but I was thinking about this the other day because you have to remember that before New Zealand was discovered, and not even discovered, because it seems quite clear that the ancient Tongans knew where New Zealand was,
yes.
but
Yeah.
they didn't. It wasn't a high priority for settlement
Mm,
for the Tongans. But you got to remember that means the Polynesian Triangle, the southern point was Tonga, which is why it was called Tonga Tapu. It was the southernmost point of the Polynesian Empire, and it was sacred. That's why south was the cardinal direction. I just want to say, what if the Maoris from Eastern Polynesia, in the decline of the Tuitonga, are trying to find there's a disconnect between Tonga and Eastern Polynesia, and in an effort to try and find Tonga, they're voyaging south to try and make that connection, and that's how they discover New Zealand and know where
mm,
it is, and that's why those migrations happen. Because I just I just don't understand what was the driver behind those migrations.
Mm,
Besides, they were looking for something, they didn't find it, but they found New Zealand and they ended up settling there. But that's my
mm.
my thoughts there, Mr. Atearoa.
Nice, nice.
Okay.
Fair.
Yeah, quick one here. Masi from Unfadable. He says, Kaul Fonua died in Futuna? Question mark. That's why the Tuitonga became defunct and Takalaua was created, and the reason for Vete Fakafutuna. But in fear of full Tongan Navy, the Futunans rebuild them ships and give gifts. Kind of gives
Mm,
your thoughts
mm.
on Kaul Fonua dying in Futuna. I think he may have misheard us.
Yeah. No, no, that's where so he went to Futuna to catch the assassins there, and then after that goes back to Tongatapu, establishes the Tuihatagalawa family dynasty kind of kingly line. Then he moves his new settlement to Ha'amoa, and from Ha'amoa he seems to be traveling all throughout the empire, but having the Inasi and Polo Polo still on Tongatapu. So that's kind of the oral history that I've learned and also shared. I don't know if if you've heard something different, but that's kind of what I've heard. I don't know if anything else, do I, on
Yeah,
that?
he doesn't go along. Kaulu Fornua didn't die in Futuna Unfadable. He actually threatens them. And I do want to add this Unfadable. When we say Tongan Navy, right, we're not just talking about Tongatapu Ha'apai and Vava'u. When the Tui Tonga says, I'm coming for you, you're talking about potentially the entire Polynesian
Hmm,
empire resources from there, right? Where
hmm,
he's like, I can go to Fiji, I can go to Haamoa, I can go to Futuna, right? Or wherever I
hmm.
can. I said, I even have loyalists within your island, right?
Yeah.
This is why I also feel like the Tuna and Fata story doesn't quite make sense that it
Hmm.
was a full blown battle because the Tuitonga would have had loyalists in
Within
Haamoa.
Ha'amoa.
Then
Hmm.
it would have had Uvea, Futuna, Tongatapu, Vava'u, Ha'apai,
Page.
Fiji, Eastern Polynesia. Talakai Faiki could have just called a thousands and thousands of warriors and Tuna and Fata. I don't care all the stories of their magic feats and moving giant rocks. When
Uh,
10,000 warriors
hmm,
show up at your front door,
no
you're
magic's
gonna,
gonna solve that one.
yeah, there ain't no magic that's gonna save you at that point, right? Which is why to me it just never made sense that Tuna and Fata was a full blown battle because that really doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's kind of the story. What I do want to add from Unfadable's comment here is Kaul Fonua Fekai brings the two assassins to Tonga and pretty much humiliates them. He knocks out all their teeth,
Mm,
right? And then, because traditionally back in the day, to make the kava, they would have people chew it to break
mm,
it up and then make the kava traditionally. So what Kaulufo Nuafekai does is he knocks out their teeth, forces them to chew
Akava.
the kava while they're bleeding, no teeth, so it's painful. Spits it out. He drinks the kava and then he kills them. Um,
Mm,
that is kind of some additional context for that unfadable, and just to kind of make it clear that Kaulufonua Fekai, who's the Tuitonga, he appoints his younger brother as the Tuihatakalaua. A lot of
correct.
people try to say Tuihatakalaua, beat the Tuitonga, kicked him out. That's why Kaulufonua Fekai went to Samoa, but they were brothers, and it was
Mm,
it was friendly, so to speak.
yeah.
Um, Looking at the time, Masi, we're almost hitting 2 hours there, so I think enough comments for the time being, and
Okay.
um, at some point we are very behind on the creation account. We probably should do that, maybe a recording rather than a live, but maybe we'll do it a live. And then we also do need to catch up on William Mariner
Correct.
story. So this is the Polynesian Eyes podcast does not have a shortage of topics and content to make. We actually have the problem we prefer to have. We have a lot of content to release, and we'll continue to build it and keep going. But I'll give my closing thoughts to close it out, Mr. Atearoa. Just want to say thank you to all the viewers and the listeners, all the support. Every like, comment, share, and subscription goes a very long way. I always want to thank our paid members of the channel. Thank you very much and appreciate everyone's support. Turn it over to you, Mr. Atearoa.
Hey, just along with what you're saying, too, I appreciate our viewers for their constant following of our content of the Polynesian Eyes podcast and every live digital kava session. Enjoy your guys' participation and your guys' comments. Special thanks to our paid subscribers. Your guys' support means a lot. Thank you, Tua, for always um, starting off our Polynesian Eyes podcast from the beginning and bringing it to where it's at now. Appreciate that. And just like we always close with the Polynesian Eyes podcast with the three things, which is, was it? Stay curious, ask the hard questions, and be bold.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Malo.
sir.
Peace.
Malo.